The morning the cement truck showed up, I thought it was a nightmare. I hadn't finished dreaming big gray beasts rumbling down my gravel, their chutes swinging like the arms of some clumsy metal god, in my backyard, the one I'd spent 10 years fixing up, glittering blue under the sun like it always had. I opened the door in my boxers and a t-shirt, and there they were, two of them, idling by the gate, drivers with clipboards, and that look you get when a job is about to happen and nobody's there to stop it. My heart dropped into my shoes. That's the short version, the part you see in the thumbnail, but there's a lot that came before and a lot that followed, and none of it, honestly, made me into the person I thought I was. Name's Eli Mercer. I live on a crooked cul-de-sac in a place nobody's ever heard of, Cedar Hollow Estates. Neat lawns, mailbox flags that never get raised, a homeowners association board that treats rumor like scripture. On paper, Cedar Hollow is sleepy. In practice, it's a tiny kingdom run by one woman who had decided she liked being queen. Her name's Marjorie Lane. She wears pearl studs and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She runs the HOA with memos and motions, and, eventually, a file folder full of grudges. It started small, a complaint about my mailbox, a note tacked to my door about maintenance standards. Then a neighbor knocked and told me Marjorie had been circulating a petition telling people my pool was non-conforming and an eyesore. I laughed at first. I've got a pool. It's mine. It's not a nuisance. But the laugh didn't last long, because Marjorie is the kind of person who collects little legalities like others collect stamps, and she's patient. When people are patient and bored and have time on their hands, they make trouble into a project. The escalation felt almost logical once you step back. Someone on the board wanted my corner lot. Maybe they thought it'd look better without the blue in the middle of it. Maybe there were plans for a community gazebo that would sit prettier if my pool weren't there. Maybe Marjorie was lonely and power became a hobby. Whatever the motive, their actions began to pile up: letters with vague legalese, anonymous inspections at night, a flyer that showed up in my mailbox with a crudely photoshopped image of my house labeled unsafe. Then, the night before the trucks, someone cut a ribbon of my perimeter sprinkler. It was petty, but it was a message: we can touch what you own. I didn't panic. I collected. That's what I tell myself now. I collected evidence the way a hoarder collects books, obsessively, badly, and with an unreasonable sense that it would be useful someday. I set up cameras. I printed every letter, every email, every terse text. I talked to neighbors who'd been too scared to speak up: a retired electrician 3 houses down named Hank, a schoolteacher named Rosa who brewed the meanest coffee and kept a folder of HOA minutes in her glove compartment. I called a lawyer, Ben Ortiz, who had a way of saying, "We'll make them pause." That made my chest unclench. Ben helped me file an injunction. He told me one sentence I still hear at night: if someone shows up to do work on your property without your consent, they're trespassing. If they do it under color of law, that's something else, and it's a crime. So, the morning of the trucks, I already had 2 things: a temporary restraining order on my phone and a camera mounted inside an empty ceramic gnome that just about everyone in town hated. Ben had filed emergency papers overnight after a late call. We weren't flashy. There was no dramatic press conference, no viral post. There was a court clerk with a coffee stain on his tie who had stamped the injunction at 9:30 that morning, and then Ben had texted the sheriff, who texted back on it. That's where the script becomes cinematic. I walk outside and find 2 guys in reflective vests and a woman with a clipboard. The contractor's office says they were hired by Cedar Hollow Association. They hand me a stack of paperwork that smells faintly of office toner and assurance. We have an HOA order to remove an illegal structure. The woman says, very calm, as if we're discussing pruning roses. This lot encroaches on a 15-foot easement for drainage. I look at the papers. The legalese is slick, but the signature is the same: Marjorie's, in a hurried hand. Who authorized this? I ask. My voice is steady in the way that happens when adrenaline turns into focus. We did, she says. The board voted. Her eyes flash triumphant, like she's just knocked a piece off some Monopoly table. Ben is on the phone. He's halfway across town, but his voice comes in clipped and efficient. Do not let them do any work. Do not let them set up anything. You have an injunction. You have a court order. The contractor's driver shifts, the chute swings, the concrete drum ticks like a metronome. I can feel my neighbor's curtains twitching. Somewhere behind me, Hank clears his throat. He's out of his doorway, wearing his work boots and an expression that says he's done this kind of thing before, and it never ends well if people don't stop it early. Enough, Hank says. It's the kind of word that echoes in neighborhood disputes. The woman with the clipboard smiles like she's offering a refund. We have orders. So I do something stupid and something brave at once I step in front of that truck. I don't touch it. I don't shout, which is weird for me. I just put my hands on my hips like some suburban David. You don't have the right, I say. I lay it out slow, because I've rehearsed beneath my own breath. The permits don't match, the easement lines on my survey are clear, and here's the county filing that proves water doesn't run that way. I hold out my phone, show them the injunction. The drivers look at the paper, at each other, then at the chute. And then Marjorie appears, walking down the cul-de-sac as if this is the sort of thing she does every Wednesday. I've never seen her this exposed. Usually she manages people from behind a screen of emails. Now she's here, pearls and all, flanked by two neighbors she's convinced will back her. She squares her shoulders, and for the first time in this whole thing, she talks like she's auditioning for a role. Mr. Mercer, she says, with that cold kindness, you're creating a spectacle. Someone's about to pour 1,000 pounds of concrete into my pool, I say. The words land like stones. That's more than a spectacle. She scoffs, beautifully practiced. You'll find the community always acts for the common good. It's a line that would play well at a PDA meeting, less so in front of a truck that's already keyed mix. A deputy arrives, Deputy Alvarez, sleeves rolled, a professional who's been doing this long enough to read when a mediation will require a file and when it will require a hand on a shoulder. He takes the papers, scans the injunction, looks at the truck, looks at me. That's an injunction, he says. It's not melodramatic, just clear. The contractor grumbles. They wheel the chutes back, and for a moment the cul-de-sac exhales. Neighbors come out like flowers in a parade, not smiling, but present. A few of them have had enough of Marjorie's memos. A woman named Dana, who'd been quiet for years, crosses her arms and tells Marjorie she's tired of living in a place where anyone can be a judge without a courtroom. The chorus builds. Marjorie's smile cracks a little. What happens next isn't just a single punchline. We had a hearing. Ben argued a neat case. That the HOA had misused its delegated authority, that the contractor's authorization was forged or improperly acquired, that there had been intimidation and a pattern of harassment. Evidence matters, and by then we had it camera footage of nocturnal inspections, time-stamped emails, neighbor statements. The judge, in that low, ordinary voice judges have, issued a permanent injunction pending trial and ordered the HOA to cease all enforcement actions until a proper vote could be scheduled and county authorities verified easement claims. Marjorie didn't go quietly. At the meeting that followed, she tried to spin it like a misunderstanding, like bureaucratic horseplay. She stood in front of a small crowd and said, "We only ever wanted what was best for the community." It was a line so familiar now that people almost laughed at its emptiness. But Marjorie had supporters, people who liked order, who believed in her leadership, who thought a pool was a frivolity and an eyesore. The turning point was less legal than human. At a community gathering a week later, I watched a woman stand up and tell a story about how Marjorie had come to her house and suggested she plant her hydrangeas a foot to the left because it would look better from my porch. The woman said it like a confession and like a complaint, and when people hear that, in a place as small as ours, radiations of truth spread fast. People spoke. Old grudges got pulled into the light. The HOA board splintered under scrutiny, and the contractor who'd been willing to pour concrete that morning admitted he'd taken instructions that didn't fit the permits he carried. There was a courtroom victory that felt like a release damages, a public apology from the HOA's insurance, a requirement that any future enforcement be vetted by county officials, and there was an emptier, sharper thing, Marjorie's resignation from the board. She packed her papers the way someone clears a desk after a storm. I don't know if she left town or just retreated into a smaller life. People like her don't disappear quietly. What I did gain, besides a pool and a set of nice new neighborly relationships, was a strange sense of change. I had thought of myself as a man who fixed things: a fence, a roof, a leak. This demanded different tools. It demanded that I be boring enough to save emails, patient enough to wait on clerks, stubborn enough to stand down in front of a truck and then stand up with a lawyer. It changed how I thought about ownership, not just of things, but of your right to a peaceful life in a place that's supposed to protect you. There are still loose threads. Some people say I should have been kinder to Marjorie, that power can erode when it's lonely, and that I could have reached out. I tried. There was a conversation once where she said, quietly, I thought I was helping. I wanted to believe her. There's an unsettled feeling that justice is messy. Sometimes it's a judge's signature. Sometimes it's neighbors finding their voice. Sometimes it's both. I still water the lawn, still mess up the patio cushions, still have coffee with Rosa on Sunday mornings. The difference is, now I see the little things as possible troublemakers. I see the patterns before they become problems. If there's a moral, it's not the one you want on a greeting card. It's simple and practical. Keep your receipts, record the weird stuff, and don't let your community's rules be a club for someone else's vendetta. And also, maybe more importantly, be the neighbor who speaks up, who listens, who files an injunction if you have to, and who shows up when someone else is scared. Courage in a cul-de-sac doesn't have to be cinematic to be real. If this story hits something for you, the little tyrants, the petty wars, the ways people weaponize rules, tell me what you think. Was I right to stand in front of that truck? Was Marjorie just a woman who lost perspective, or something worse? Drop your take in the comments. Share a time your community surprised you. And if you want more of these neighborhood dramas, hit like and subscribe, because small towns are full of big stories, and apparently, I'm getting good at collecting them.